Alright guys, welcome back to another exciting tutorial. This is Fash. In this tutorial we want to dive into what function really means. Okay, function is a code block that only executes when it is invoked. Parameter are data that can be passed using into a function. So I've actually written some code right there which I'm going to delete back. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is that I'm going to delete it back and I'm going to run this code. You can see nothing is in there. Okay, you can see. So how can you create a function? Function is being created using def. You are going to use def is a keyword for you creating the function, def. Okay, by the time you create it, you see this green icon. So let's say for instance you want to create a function that will display your name. Okay, just say my name. Okay, all right, my name. All right, by the time you do that, you have to terminate it. Use a double column, all right, and hit on enter. So when you hit on enter, the code that you're going to type here is going to be the body of your function. So what do I want to print? I want to print hello, welcome, hello, my name is Fash, the tech guy. So by the time you probably run this, you see nothing is going to happen because you just created this function, you have never invoked it. So you have to call a function before it works. So call is also known as what? Invoke. So you can invoke a function for you to be able to display this hello, my name is Fash the tech guy. So what are you going to do? Just type my name, the name of the function, and type open and close bracket. That's how to invoke. Type that name with open and close bracket back. So that's how to invoke a function. Let's run it. You can see my name is Fash. All right, Fash the tech guy. So that is how to call a function. So another thing I would like to explain to you right now is what is called argument. Okay, so what is argument? Anytime you put anything inside this open and close bracket before you use it, that thing is called what? Parameters. Okay, but anytime you use a value, it's called an argument. So this is argument are supplied inside the parentheses after the function name. You can use it as many arguments as you want and separate them by comma. So what am I saying in next is this? Okay, let's take for instance you want to create a function that's going to be displaying first name of a lot of people. Okay, so let me delete this back and delete this back and delete this back. Okay, so let me run this code. You can see nothing is in there. By the time you run this, nothing is in there. So you can say your first name. I can say def, like we all know, my first name. So by the time you do that, you terminate it like this and say print, and you say my first excuse me, first name is. So by the time you do that, you see this, anytime you put this thing inside this place, is called an argument. Okay, so just type first name all together. So let's run this code and let's see some errors. So find the code is running well. So what you're going to do now is that you now call this function back. You can see you call it function back and put anything inside of this. Okay, let's take for instance, I say my first name is Fatai. All right, so when you do this, you have to ensure that you concatenate if you want that name to display. So this is my first name, you copy it in there, you have to paste it right there. So that's when my first name is Fatai is going to show. Okay, so let's run the code and let's run this code too. You can see my first name is Fatai shown. All right, let's now say for instance you want to have more than this display. So you can have as many functions as possible. Function can be repeatedly used and that's their beauty. Okay, my first name is Olamide. All right, let's create another one. My first name is Mike. All right, so by the time you run this code, you can see all of these names will display. So when you create a function, you can reuse it, and that's the beauty. Create the functions to perform a particular task, and once that task is going to be repeatedly occurring, so you can easily call the functions. Fine, good. So another thing is a lot of people always ask the difference between parameters and arguments. Okay, fine, let me just tell you the difference. So now anytime you put anything inside this place, it is called an argument or parameters. But if you really want to know the difference is that anything inside this place specifically is known as a parameter, but anytime you are putting a value inside this place while you are calling a function, that is known as an argument. Okay, The phrase parameters and arguments can both refer to the same thing that are provided into a function. A parameter is a variable listed inside a parenthesis. So this thing is a parenthesis, open and close bracket. But anytime you're having something inside this place, that makes it what? A parameter. So now, by the time you are calling the function and you're setting a value, that makes it an argument. So a parameter is always regarded as a variable, while this thing is an argument is always regarded as a value. I repeat, a parameter is always regarded as a variable, while argument is always regarded as a value. Just like when you say x equals 7, you know, x is a variable, while 7 is the value of the x. All right, good. So now what I'm going to do right now is that, and let me just sorry, I don't want this. Let me just go straight down to how to set the difference. So you can have more than one argument. Okay, like I want to display my first name and last name, so let me just remove this, run it, remove this, and run it as well, so that we have a clean cell. So let's say def again, my names. So this is not just a single name now, so I have a parenthesis and which have a parameter of first name. You separate it by comma, last name. All right, so when you do this, you have to ensure that you actually put something like this at the back, okay, and say print, and you say my. So ensure that you probably put it because you want to display a string. My first name is. So this now we now have a concatenate. We have to concatenate it. So you see, so you copy this, you paste it in there. You know, you concatenate again because you want to do string. You now say my last name is, because you want to use that variable, you concatenate, copy this. You can use string concatenation, which we've done in the first module, but I just want to make it so easy. So my last name is this. So when you are calling that function the name, so what you're going to do right now is that you're going to copy this, paste it like this, open and close bracket, and then put your first name to be Fash, and let me say the last name is Tech guy. So if you do this and you probably run this code, let's run this code first, and you run this second code, let's see what's going to happen. You can see my first name is Fash and my last name is what? The Tech guy. So like I said, you can use this function for so many people, first name and last name. So you can copy this and you can paste this in there, and you see my first name is what? Ola Mede, and you see the last name is Sola. So if you do this and you probably run the code, you see it shows another what? Line. So you can create a function and you use it as many times as possible. So okay, so another thing I would like to explain is that let's say for instance you're a student of University of Ilorin and you want to let us know your department, and you should ensure that whatever value you put inside this place, if it is 2 parameters, so the argument should be 2. So I created something right now. Let me just show you, okay, let me just show you right now. So what I want to do is that, let's say for instance now I want to create a function that will display student name and the department it comes from. So I say std info, student info. So don't forget the way we do our thing, print I am, what is your name? So here I know I've said student name, std name, okay, and I'll separate by comma and I'll say department. I am, you know, here I'm going to have the student name, so I'll have to start use concatenation std name from, you know, I have to say from department of, I have to say, okay, what is department? department. Okay, so this name, you can see all those things are strings. So when you want to add names to it, you put plus. You put plus again because you want to add strings to it. You put plus again because you want to add names to it. So this is basically concatenation. It's pretty easy. It's in the first module of this course, so I believe you should all know this by now. All right, so the second thing is that we need to say, okay, let's call the function std info. Okay, I'm going to copy so that I will not make mistake. I paste it right in there. So imagine if I just say student name alone. Let me say Fash. All right, so if you run this code, because you didn't use department, it's going to display error. You can see error. But the moment you say comma and you say ICS, okay, so anytime you do this and run the code back, it's going to be correct. So ensure that whatever parentheses parameters you use, if it is more than 1, 2, 3, you should ensure that it is what also the same thing. But what if you don't really know, if you don't know how many parameters you want to use before in the first place? So that is when you use what is known as what arbitrary argument, which is known as args. So okay, fine, let me show you something right now. I created a variable called my fruits, and I use hash and fruits because I don't know the number of fruits I'm actually going to call. So now I call my fruit bag. I say cucumber, orange, cherry, mangoes, and apple. So by the time you do this, if you now want to select any of these in your code, you use indexing. You can say this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So if you want to say 0, 1, 2, that means you want to show cherry. So if you want to show probably 3, if you want to show 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, that means it's going to display mango. Okay, you can see display mango. So that is what is called what arbitrary argument, which is args. So there's what we call keyword argument. So keyword argument is when you initially set the keyword alongside with the value after you've declared it. So what am I saying in next sense? You can see I say Python student, I say first name, second name, last name, and I say print my first student. So anytime I want to set the value, I can easily put the value inside this place. So keyword argument, you have the key, which is the variable, and the value, which is this core value. So okay, if you don't understand, let me show you something real quick like now. So let's say for instance now I want to run this code. I can say first name is equals to Biola, and last name is equals to second student is equals to Bukola. So let me just hit on enter so that you see, and third name is equals to, is going to be equals to Adam. So if you do this, my first student name is, this is the first student name. Biola is going to be displayed. So if you call this Python right now, the Python student right now, you can see the first student name is displayed. So anytime you're using the variable together with the value inside the word parentheses, that is known as keyword argument. So but many times you might not know the number of keyword argument that you want to use. So we have another thing called arbitrary keyword argument. So this is when you use 2 asterisks and probably use the name alongside. You can see, because you just say names, you don't know the number of names that you want to input, maybe 4 or 5 names. But by the time you are calling it, you can see you use what the first names and the last name. So that is it. But there's what we call default parameter too. Sometimes you might decide to actually set a value, and later in the future you can be changing it. I created a dev course called courses software engineering, which is the first default parameter. So later in the future I might want to call this my course and put another parameters inside this particular place. So instead of showing software engineering, it's going to show data analytics, motion graphics, and graphics, article hacking. But if I don't actually put anything probably in here before, I just run the code, the code is going to actually show me software engineering. But if you start putting, it's going to override the first one. So that's what is known as what default parameter value. All right, so last but not the least, there's what to call passing a list as an argument. So no matter what, when you are creating your function, let me just explain this. You can send any data types or argument or function, whether it is string, number, dictionary, or anything, and it will be treated as the same data type inside the function. So what I'm saying is that you can see I created a div, I call it food, and I use a loop inside this place. So what I'm calling is what a list, and it's showing me how to actually iterate. So I'm iterating the list with my function. So anytime I call my function, the list is going to be iterated. This is pretty simple. All right, so but when you are creating your function, just ensure that number one, you make sure you put something inside the function. The function should have a body. So if the function is not having a body, definitely you are going to receive an error. So if you don't want to put a body inside your function, you have to put pass, and that is that. All right, that is all for function right now. I appreciate if you can drop any kind of questions that is not actually clear to you. I'm all ears. I'm ready to answer, and trust me, this is what you need to know about functions right now. So in the next tutorial, we're going to look at what is known as lambda. What is lambda and why it is very important in Python. Until then, I can't wait to have you in the next tutorial. Bye and have fun.